Listen up. If you want to improve your sales forecasting accuracy, here are 5 common mistakes that you want to avoid. I'm LizJSimpson, founder of the Big Money Movement, accompanied by
Cheryl Parks
and Heather Petherick,
who are our esteemed coaches at the Big Money Movement. Cheryl, Heather, let's talk about this. So Heather, I'm going to kick it off to you.
Let me just start with the biggest mistake that will send sales forecasting plans awry. The biggest mistake that I see in sales forecasting and what erodes accuracy is setting numbers, forecast goals, without an eye or an understanding for the daily and weekly activities that are going to logically lead to achieving that forecast, right? So oftentimes as a new business owner, we might have lofty goals, revenue goals that we want to hit, but we don't know our business well enough, or we ignore their daily realities, what we call IPAs, or income producing activities, that are the daily and weekly small actions that we take that will over time, predictably, organically, inevitably lead us to meeting those sales and forecast goals. So knowing what your IPAs are and reverse, if we know what our goal is for sales forecasting, reverse engineering that back to a weekly and a monthly IPA activity cadence. When we don't do that, that is the biggest mistake that we can make, because we're just making it up and not tying it to daily actions.
100%. I agree. I mean, it's, I think of the book Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, which is one of my favorite books. And so Vern points out in that book, like, you should know the numbers. Actually, there's one number, he says, that should be the driver of your business. And you should know what that most important number is. But there are various KPIs. And I think too often, to your point, we talk to small business owners or entrepreneurs, and we ask them, what are the numbers that drive the success of your business? And they don't know.
They don't know.
Yeah, they don't even know. So it's like, well, if you don't know,
how are you going to get there?
Listen, that part. I want to add the second common mistake I see is like tethered to yours. Tethered to Heather.
Yes.
And that one is leveraging technology, or the mistake I see is doing it manually.
Ooh.
Here's what this looks like in the women that we coach, right? It's, Liz, oh my gosh, I have 100% conversion. Everybody I talk to closes. Really? Are you really documenting all of the conversations you're having? Did you really document these individuals over here? What we find is a lot of times when we're relying on our own memory or recollection, we're forgetting, oh, so-and-so actually emailed me, or there was an inbound lead here, or I did talk to this person at this conference, but I forgot to follow up with them. So it's this selective memory. And the reason why that is a misstep is because it's not giving you accurate data.
Yes.
Right? And so then we set false expectations of, I close everyone. And then when you go through a few months where you don't, you shame yourself, or you think something's wrong with the market. It's like, well, you never closed everybody. You just didn't count all the data, right? And so instead of relying on your own memory, which for most small business owners and entrepreneurs, we're doing all of the things. So who wants?
It's already overloaded.
Who wants to do that? It's leverage a CRM. And CRM is customer relationship management tool, or like a sales CRM. Working with small business owners, we highly recommend Pipedrive. That's one that's very, intuitive, user-friendly. And the benefit of something like that is every time you talk to someone, track it in the technology. Every interaction that you have, every deal you close, every deal you lost. And instead of you having to memorize it, data from the technology does all the work for you. And it says, you know what? Actually, for every LinkedIn invite you send, you connect with about 30% of them. 30% of those turn into conversations. 50% of those conversations turn into proposals. 40% of those proposals turn into deals. And now you have true numbers to increase your accuracy.
I love so much about what you're saying, Liz, because it's two sides of the same coin. Unless we accurately document the activities we're doing each day, each week, those critical income producing activities, and we know exactly what they are from an impartial, non-judgment, straight up, straight in the mirror way, right? If we're not tracking carefully, one of two things is going to happen. Number one, you're going to have false confidence, like you talk about, where I close 50% of all my conversations when that may not actually be accurate. Or the reverse is true, and I see this very often with new business owners, where they're not tracking, they're not taking credit for all of the great activity they're doing, particularly in the early phases of business, where there's a big big, heavy flywheel that needs to get going, and there's a lot of effort required.
Yeah.
And they'll come and they'll say, none of this is working. This isn't meant for me. I'm fatally flawed or inaccurate. And they're beating themselves up for no good reason.
Right.
When in fact, if they looked at the numbers and they took credit for all of the action that is inevitably going to lead them to the big payday, they'd have a lot more confidence, a lot more emotional buoyancy, and resilience in their business.
Okay, I love this phrase, emotional buoyancy.
I know, don't you?
Can you dig in? Can you explain to the people what that means?
Well, I can only talk about this in confidence because I have been emotionally non-buoyant early on in my own business. So now it's like my MO. I used to hide from my numbers, right? Because I was afraid that they would show a picture that I was saying that I was fatally flawed. I was inadequate, and this wasn't meant for me.
Oh.
And I did that. I kept my head in the sand, ignoring my numbers, tracking what I was doing, tracking my results, only for so long as to the point where I was sick and tired of being on the struggle broke bus.
Yes.
And then I realized, you know what? Whatever the truth is, I need to know what it is so that I can course correct. And when I started to fall in love with my numbers and really carefully track what I was doing and what results were or weren't coming, I started to see patterns that I could predict, patterns that I had confidence in. And my love and affection and my obsession for tracking activities just grew, and so did the profitability of my business. And that's
fantastic.
That's when the emotional buoyancy comes, because you can take your own self-worth out of the business game and just look impartially unattached to, why were my numbers not great this month? Well, guess what? I didn't follow my IPA goals.
Right.
I didn't take the action that I know is required. So I don't have to feel bad. I know where to course correct and move on.
Oh my gosh, y'all,
Fantastic.
that was a major bonus tip. Like that, you should have had to pay for that nugget. Like, okay, Cheryl, I know you have the next 3 tips. I just have to say one more thing about that, because candidly, I've spent so much of the last few years of my business being so obsessive about numbers.
Yeah.
I forgot why people really are afraid of numbers. And I love that you said that. It's the narrative attached to the numbers. And I love that you revealed that for those listening. It's like, take the emotion out of it. You know, I love what you said about that, because I view it too. Like, I view the numbers as an experiment. I see it as a math equation.
Yeah.
Like, I put this in for X, I put this in for Y. Oh, look at what came out with Z.
what I got.
What happens if I change Y? And how does this, but I've taken the emotion out of it.
Yes.
And it helps me then to recalibrate and call audibles in the business. So I just think that's such a nugget. It's like, not only track, but just take the emotion, create emotional buoyancy.
Create emotional buoyancy. Don't attach too much like inaccurate or unnecessary meaning to your numbers.
Right.
It's just data. And if you're watching the data will love you. It tells you the story and the answers you need.
Oh, that's so gold. All right, Cheryl, I know you have 3 other tips for us. Let's roll in. What are other mistakes?
So the first tip, the first one I'm going to speak to is inspect what you expect, which is exactly what you're talking about, right? Yeah. So you have to inspect the process. You have to inspect your numbers. You have to inspect, your goals, right? And how they're tied together, because there is a story there, as you mentioned, and you'll start to see the story and it will bubble up for you. And you'll say, seems to me like every time I get to this point, there's a breakdown here.
Yes.
Right? That's called pipeline. Okay. So in the sales aspect, it's called pipeline. You'll see yourself going from prospecting to discovery calls to proposals to won or lost deals. As you come through it, you just need to know that you will start to see where the breakdown is, and then you can start to adjust.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
Because I think there's gold there. Like I don't want them to skip over that.
Okay.
Because what she's saying is maybe you have 50 prospects that you're prospecting, and maybe that turns into 20 discovery calls. But then all of a sudden you have 2 proposals. Right. And you're like, wait a second.
Where's the breakdown?
When I'm having discovery calls, why aren't these turning into proposals? And then that gives you fuel to know where to call an audible. Like, okay, I just had to highlight that. That's good.
For example, that audible could be that you're not working with well-qualified buyers, right? So all of a sudden, that's where the breakdown is. You have a smaller number of qualified prospects, and so now you know where you need to go to increase the number of qualified prospects to up the number of proposals that you get to.
Yes.
And it all works through. It's all interconnected. So thank you for clarifying and adding to that piece. The second piece of it is hire a coach. Listen, there are so many people out here that have already walked. You just heard Heather's Emotional buoyancy story.
Learn from my mistake.
Right. All the coaches in BMM specifically understand where you've been.
Yeah.
It's not that we know everything, but we've been a lot of places that you're stomping around in, trying to figure it out. Emotional buoyancy, I just visualize like the little wrap.
The Red Bull. Did you see like the Red Bull?
My floaty wings. That's what I'm wearing.
If you feel like you're out at sea in the floaty wings, here you go. So there's a lot of that. So you want to, the mistakes I see people making is they're thinking that they can, trudge the path as if it's a brand new path, and it's not. Someone has already been down the path. It'd be like you saying you want to make new music. There's probably not such a thing in this day and age.
Yeah.
So the third piece of it that I'll go to is I see people that don't want to practice. I say practice doesn't make perfect. It makes comfortable, natural, and confident.
Yeah.
The more you practice, the more confident you will feel, and you'll transfer that energy in your sales calls. So a lot of people want to wing it. I hear lots of sales execs, founders, business people want to wing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's always different. I'm just going to go in here and listen and no ma'am, no sir.
No.
No ma'am.
No.
You're not going to wing it. We need to be practiced, and we need to understand that only helps us walk into the room in a more confident, substantial manner, so that we're not feeling like we have to validate ourselves.
Yeah, and more effective, right?
Yes.
And I always tell, when we're working with the women, and I think this comes back to the outcomes and the results that our members are seeing, is that they can accelerate their path to success by learning, we've stepped in the holes.
Yeah,
We've
stumbled.
The grenades.
Right? So we can help them sidestep these potential pitfalls so that their path is more elegant and more efficient. And one of the other things I'm always, I love to share with the members is have some respect for your buyer. Let's not use your buyer as your guinea pig.
Your test dummy.
As your test dummy. As you are learning to articulate your offer, even if you're dialing in your positioning or learning how to conduct a really efficient discovery conversation or pitching a proposal, don't use that precious moment in front of the buyer to try things out. Try it out in a loving, secure, private community, the Big Money Movement, where we can, lovingly nurture you towards greater success. I love role playing.
Can I just add one quick point? The buyer, you want people reviewing your material, your proposal, etc., that can look at it from a buyer's perspective. That typically is not your sister, your brother, your spouse, your friend, or your neighbor.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
That was
having the right people. So I hear you saying practice, and by practice we're alluding to role play.
Yes.
Right? So what are the conversations or circumstances or activities that are a part of your sales process, and how do you practice role play in a safe, psychologically safe environment, right? And then make sure that the people that you're practicing with have a lens where they can critique through the eyes of the buyer to help prepare you for the real world.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes. Okay.
It's a powerful magic sauce, let me tell you.
That is gold. Okay, look, I want to go deeper into this conversation. If you want to join us, you know you do. Join us in the next video where we're going to talk about 4 tips to close sales. That's a part of that pipeline that Cheryl was talking about. So click that video where we will share our secret sauce for 4 tips to closing more sales. Bye.